Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the Elliott Homestead. We're going to be making some delicious, warming food today, and we have to because it's absolutely frigid outside. We've been going through a cold snap like most of the country, and that's meant for a lot of extra work, a lot of extra effort, and really having to just focus on things that keep us and the animals warm. So we're going to do just that today, and I hope that if you're freezing where you are, it makes you feel a little bit more warm too. Before we get started, I would like to thank Thrive for sponsoring today's video. You guys have heard me talk about Thrive before. This is an online grocery store that's really on a mission to make organic food available at a good price to everybody. Thrive Market is a membership-based online grocery store that's on a mission to make healthy living easy and affordable to everybody. And you get guaranteed savings on every order. Just on this order that I'm going to be using today, I saved over $24. Thrive is adding new products all the time, and if you've ever shopped at your local stores or health food stores for specific items, you know how expensive it can get, but that's not the case with Thrive. So when you become a Thrive member, you'll save on every single order of sustainable and high-quality organic products. In fact, if you find a lower price somewhere else, they will match it. So give it a try. Visit thrivemarket.com/The Elliott Homestead. Use that link so you can get 30% off your first order and a free gift worth up to $60 in value. So these are all staples that I try to keep in my pantry all the time, which means every once in a while they need restocking. And I'm going to be making a soup today from these pantry items. I call it Italian pantry soup. I did it for my cooking community months ago and it's been such a hit, so I wanted to share it with you. If you would like more information on joining our cooking community, there's a link right below the video, or you can just visit cook.theelliottHomestead.com. Remember, this is where we create 5 new recipes every month that are from scratch based and made to be delicious. We share them with our cooking community members, along with an instructional cooking video for every single recipe so that you can learn new skills, learn how to play with new flavors, and put some new staples in your pantry. So the idea behind pantry soup is that you can really throw it together at the last minute with items that you just normally keep in your pantry. You may have been catching on to a theme around here, but the reality is we've been so busy doing chores outside, keeping everything running and everyone fed and trying to keep all the creatures as warm as we can, that there just hasn't been a ton of time for fussing around in the kitchen. I mean, I think we were doing like morning feeding chores until 2 o'clock on Saturday.
Well, it was freezing cold, so yeah, it was a lot of moving animals around and replacing bedding and all that stuff. So
we sort of had this weird moment. The wind has always blown north to south here, always. And we had this crazy snowstorm right before the cold hit. And the wind was just like a blizzard. It was just whipping around. And because of that, we had a really hard time keeping animal shelters dry because the wind was coming from all directions. The snow was blowing in from all directions. And so the bedding just kept getting wet. So there's a few factors when it comes to animal husbandry in the cold. And you really try to limit the amount of factors that your animals are having to deal with. So for example, if they're having to deal with extreme cold, you try to not let them deal with extreme cold and with moisture at the same time. And so keeping them dry became critical. I mean, we had to.
yeah, it was priority number one. So that just meant using some available space, or making some space available in our old barn that was nice and dry still, and the snow didn't make it into. So
right.
Yeah.
So that meant moving a lot of stuff around on Saturday when it was -12, I think was our low here, which is cold.
That's cold for us.
It's cold for the animals too.
That's not typical. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that is really cold.
Yeah, I know a lot of people deal with temperatures like that in a more common way, but here that's pretty low. So
yeah, my friend Yolanda was telling me that it was -40 at her parents' house.
Oh goodness.
In Canada.
Yeah.
So then you can't really complain. But the reality is you still have to deal with it. and it came on really quickly. So
Yeah.
for the animals, that meant getting them out of the snow to start with, and then making sure that they had dry bedding, which kind of becomes a full-time job, keeping them in close enough quarters that their body heat can kind of support each other a little bit.
Yeah.
And really, we only lost one chicken,
Yep.
which is incredible. And she was very old.
She was. I wasn't expecting her to make it through the winter.
Yeah.
So she was in her last days, but we brought her inside so she could
Yeah.
be warm.
She died warm.
Yeah.
Sweet Phyllis. But other than that, we made it through with no major catastrophes, even though it was a lot of extra work and our hands are chapped and face are chapped just from being out in the cold. So it was extreme. Have you checked to see how the greenhouse held up in those coldest temperatures?
Yeah, I mean, it did okay. I think it's consistently about 30 degrees above what the outside temperature is. But
Okay.
When it got really, really cold, like -12, I think the low was 21 inside the greenhouse.
Okay.
But that's with no extra layer or insulation. Or
Right.
anything
No
like
frost
that.
paper over
Right.
anything.
Yep. Yep.
Right.
So I think we can actually get better. And that is going to be very rare that we actually see that.
Big
Pretty
time.
rare. So I think we can actually deal with that. We can handle it. So.
Big time. So we can count on it roughly running 30 degrees above the lowest that it gets outside.
That's right.
And so we can kind of anticipate that and just frost paper anything or add a little bit more heat, more protection from things. So now that we know that, we can probably move our citrus trees outside once the cold snap passes. That would be kind of cruel to put a poor little lemon tree that's been used to a 70-degree bedroom and put it in a 50-degree greenhouse. So
Right.
we might give it do it on a warm day.
There you go.
Give it a little bit of a chance.
Yeah. Well, and even on these cold days when the sun comes out, that helps tremendously.
Oh, yeah.
And it has no problem maintaining the heat range that we have it set at.
Yeah.
When the sun comes out. So.
Yeah. Well, that's great news. I mean, and I'm really happy to have it. And now that we know that, we can start planting some of those crops in there that we were wanting to do anyway. So we made it through the cold snap. All the animals are doing well. We're gonna go hopefully this weekend to pick up some dairy sheep. More on that later. And I think it's kind of one of those moments you just need to be glad that you made it through. Although the pipes in our house did not.
Not all of some of them froze. Thankfully, nothing burst yet.
Yep.
But I spent the better part of Saturday thawing things out. So
Yeah.
I was able to get the pipes thawed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just kind of realize, for one, how dependent we are on these things working. You count on water running. You count on being able to have hot water. We've been trucking out buckets of hot water to the chickens, and you count on those things being available. But the reality is this was a super old house, and it probably wasn't even initially built to be lived in the way that we live in it, because it was originally built as an orchard shack. And old houses they don't stay warm. I mean, every room is just cold. It's all cold.
Pretty much. It's better than outside.
It's so much better than outside.
But yeah, on those really cold days, I had a hard time keeping up with. Yeah. So on my Georgia ears got really cold.
You don't have the genetics for it?
No. So I've been joking that I actually need to go to bed with a nightcap on.
Keep your ears warm?
Yeah.
I don't think my ears have ever gotten cold like that.
Yeah. Well, your hair.
You have hair? We have a beard for your face.
Yeah, that does help.
So
yeah, but
it's probably for you.
I so far failed to grow the appropriate amount of hair on my ears. I'm trying.
All right, so this pantry soup, you can use sausage or ground meat, any kind of leftover roast that you have. It's just what you have in your refrigerator or in your freezer. So I have some ground meat today, and I'm cooking it alongside a diced onion, another pantry staple. Now, because I'm just using ground meat and not any kind of flavored sausage, I'm going to add in some Italian seasoning, just good old generic Italian seasoning, and garlic powder as well. But you could certainly use fresh garlic. This makes it just a little bit faster. So once all that kind of cooks together with the seasonings and the ground meat is cooked, Then I'm going to add in some chicken stock, garbanzo beans, artichoke hearts, and pasta, and canned tomatoes. Again, all pantry staples that you can, it doesn't sound nice when you just say dump it all in one pot, but that's really what you can do. And the idea is that you're giving your body some warmth from the inside. So on my best days, I have chicken stock made. I actually cooked up 3 chickens and made a few gallons of chicken stock this weekend. And that's what we were drinking when we came inside, because just a really high quality stock with some salt is really nourishing. It has a lot of protein actually, and it really warms your core, which is what you need when it's this cold outside. There's a reason this is called soup season. But I do keep some canned or jarred chicken stock in the root cellar, because on my not perfect days or when we're consuming a lot more than normal, it just, that way I make sure I never run out of stock, because you always got to have the ingredients for soup at the ready. The great thing about pantry soup is that it can include all sorts of different things. In this case, I'm going to be adding some cooked chickpeas, chicken broth, and then eventually some pasta and canned tomatoes from the summer harvest. The idea is that we're making use of what we have in the pantry and putting it together in a delicious way. So you can adapt this in endless ways, but it'll warm your belly regardless. This summer, I really prioritized preserving tomatoes from the garden. I grew a San Marzano style tomato almost exclusively, and every single time I open a jar, I'm so glad that I put the work in on the front end. You get a little bit of summer in the middle of winter. It can be easy, I'm sure, for people who live in warm weather to look at what we're experiencing here in central Washington as a bad thing. But the reality is that winter, the cold, and the snow are very important factors of life here. The snowpack is what fills our reservoirs, like you see here. If we don't get snow, we don't have water in the summertime. So really, snow is life for us in so many ways. This is what fills our well and fills the reservoirs so that everything around us can live. This is a high desert, which means that the summers are incredibly hot and incredibly dry. The cold of winter also helps the amount of pests that we deal with. Oftentimes, I see gardeners who struggle with certain critters or bugs in their garden, and we just don't have those same struggles because it gets so cold here. Even things like fleas die, which I'm quite happy about. So instead of fighting temperatures below -12, I'm really trying hard to acknowledge them for what they are, which is a challenge and a blessing. There's an incredible stillness that comes across the farm when it's this cold outside, almost like everything's holding still, even the gardens, to preserve any amount of warmth that they have. It only usually gets this cold when the skies are crystal clear and there's no cloud cover to insulate.
Yes, -12 is cold, but there are many blessings to be found this time of year, and I'm grateful for them. I hope you enjoy.